Republican Congress member from Montana, served us brilliantly as a special operator, friend of show, Ryan Zinke. Good to see you.
Great to be with you. And a lot in your monologue, but I would have to agree with you. The bill as it sits doesn't do as intended to do. And to me, Chris, it's just a simple balance sheet. Whatever we find in savings, and look, the first rung of savings ought to be to remove the waste, fraud, and abuse. And there's a lot there. So we can all agree, we should debate where we spend our money, but there should be no debate on waste, fraud, and abuse. So whatever we find in savings, and look, on a $7 trillion budget, I think we can find 2.5 or 3.5 billion or trillion dollars in 10 years. So that's let's say if it's $3 trillion, that's $300 billion a year on a $7 trillion budget. So whatever we find, in savings, I'm good to rolling over so Americans don't get a big tax. And I will agree with you. Even Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite presidents, said, look, the more you make, the more you should pay because you have an obligation to make sure you protect the system that allowed you to make the money in the first place. But there should be incentive to make money, and when it goes too high, that's socialism. But whatever we get in savings, that's roll over to taxes, but we shouldn't go in debt doing it. And Moody's today, the 10-year bond market is an indicator of performance. And the 10-year bond market said, look, we're going to downgrade our bond and our rating because we have a spending problem in this country that we're going to have to address.
So, two things. First, why is it being this way when Trump said he was really framing himself as a populist this time? Steve Bannon's out there saying, we get it now. We got to take care of the majority, the working families, not the top. They'll take it and we'll just use the money the right way. You're not going to waste your tax increase. What happened to that?
Well, you look at politics. Why are we $36 trillion in debt? And I will say this, we've deviated from Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. No money should be removed from Treasury unless by appropriations by law. And I said on appropriations, I only look at less than 30% of the budget because the big problem, and there's three ships of problems. There's Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Social Security's off the table. But we got to look at, what does the states pay on Medicaid? And is there a fraud, waste, and abuse? Unless there's an incentive to work in this country, then we're going nowhere. But if we don't handle our spending, what that does for all of us is that how about your mortgage insurance? How about your mortgage itself? How about your car loan? All those go up, and a 3-point difference in a mortgage can mean doubling your mortgage. So the American dream of owning a home gets further and further away. And oh, by the way, the government is paying $1 trillion a year in interest rates. That is more than we're paying for defense.
I'm with making cuts and having the debate. But here's what I don't understand. And you're a good man to ask about this because, you're a straight shooter, but you're also a really decorated veteran. I don't understand why you start with those two buckets and not the fourth one. Okay, I get that Social Security is not on the table, whatever. The Department of Defense hasn't gotten a moment of even lip service. They fail every accounting that's done, and they got money added to them. Why didn't you guys start there? Why didn't DOGE start there? That's not poor people. That's not the elderly. That's not those that we swore to take care of with the safety net. Why don't we start there?
Well, the bigger problem is on the mandatory side, but I will agree. Look, Department of Defense has 800,000 DOD employees. So let's add up what that costs. When you talk about health care, salary, pension, that's over $200 billion. Combat strength, Chris, that's 20 aircraft carriers a year in strength. We can only muster 4 or 5 out. So we're spending a lot of money on non-defense related. Well, it takes organizing. Remember, this is defense, so be careful. But I agree with you. You should look at the discretionary side too. But on the budget, all right. You look at like 25% is discretionary. Half of that is defense. You can cut defense entirely, and it won't cover what you owe on the debt, on our interest payment. So
no,
you
listen,
got to do all
You're not
going
to take care of all
the above.
You're not taking care of it with one cut. I'm just saying, in terms of optics, Ryan, I agree with you 100%. You're not just going to reach in one pocket. Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security are really big challenges for us. There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
But I just feel like, you know, they're the only guys who got added to in this environment was the DOD. And, you know, we're like giving away more stuff than we're using, right? Between Israel and Ukraine, you're giving away like all the old stuff that you can to these guys. And I just don't know why it's on the table. But I appreciate your candor on this, and the audience benefits from it.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, look, we're going to have to get our spending in order. And that means the first rung should be remove the waste, fraud, and abuse. Again, you know, I think we should have a debate what we spend money on. There should be no debate on that. And then you look at, you know, maybe the states should pay a little more on Medicaid. Because when the states pay 3% and you're getting 97% from the federal government, there's no incentive. There's no incentive not to expand and expand and expand. Pretty soon you have guys that are making $100,000 a year, and they're able-bodied men. Let's put them to work. But also this makes sure there's jobs there, right? So it's, you know, it's a big picture. But at the end of the day, I think the 10-year bond is probably our litmus test of how we're doing. And
you got to cut.
The biggest threat I see is, look, if we don't get our spending under control and interest rates go up, that's going to affect every family. And we should look at the middle class. We should look at underserved, those people that are struggling. You know, that's where we need to focus our time and our energy, make sure that people can work. Because without work, there's no purpose. So, look, let's get in there and absolutely.
Be responsible with the spending. And then guys like me, when you come and say we're going to take another bite out of your hiney, I get it. All right, I see that you're cutting spending. You want more money to take care of the middle class. Go ahead and do it. Take it from me. Fine. But as long as we don't trust how you're spending the money, that's why they push back, unless they're just pigs. That's why they push back on the tax increase. It's because they don't think they're spending it right. All right, I got to jump. Ryan Zinke, I appreciate your candor. We'll continue the conversation. I wish you the best for the weekend.
Always a pleasure. And you too, Chris.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.